Welcome. Today, we're going to unpack Viśiṣṭādvaita, a really fascinating school of Hindu philosophy. We'll get into its core ideas about God, about us, the soul, and the universe itself. So let's just jump right in with the biggest question of all, right? The one that's kept philosophers busy for thousands of years. What is the ultimate nature of reality? And in India, this question has been a total obsession, especially within the Vedanta school of thought, which really digs into the sacred texts, the Vedas, for answers. Within Vedanta, you've got these three absolute giants, these great teachers called acharyas, who came up with very distinct and sometimes competing answers, and they basically set the stage for one of the greatest philosophical debates in history. And here they are, the three main players: Śaṅkara, who argued for a pure non-dualism; Ramanuja, who's our main focus today; and Madhva, who went the other way with a philosophy of dualism. Each one gives us a totally unique lens to look at reality. Okay, so let's really get into it. The best way to get a handle on what Ramanuja brought to the table is to see it in context. So let's put the core ideas of these three thinkers side by side. This table just lays it all out perfectly. For Śaṅkara, the world we see is basically an illusion. Only one thing, Brahman, this supreme consciousness, is truly real. Madhva, he's on the complete opposite end. He says God and our souls are totally separate realities and always will be. And then, smack dab in the middle, that's Ramanuja. He agrees with Madhva that the world and souls are real, but he also agrees with Śaṅkara that ultimate reality is one. So how does he pull that off? Well, he charts this brilliant middle path. He finds a way to make sense of a single unified reality while also honoring the very real, diverse world we all experience. And this amazing synthesis he came up with is called Viśiṣṭādvaita. So, what on earth does that name actually mean? Let's break it down because the name itself is basically the whole philosophy in a nutshell. Okay, so Viśiṣṭādvaita translates to qualified non-dualism. Advaita means non-dual, or not two, the idea that reality is ultimately one single thing. But the key word here is Viśiṣṭā, which means qualified or characterized by. So what Ramanuja is saying is, yeah, reality is one, but it's a qualified one. It's a unified whole that's made up of very real, distinct parts: God, all of us individual souls, and the physical world. And the analogy he uses to explain this is just fantastic. It's the relationship between a soul and a body. Think about it. Your mind and your hand are two different things, right? But they form one single inseparable you. In the same way, Ramanuja says that all of us, all the individual souls, and the entire physical universe, we all form the body of the one supreme being, Brahman. Now, that's a pretty profound way to look at things. But for it to be a solid philosophy, it can't just be a cool idea. It needs a foundation. You have to explain how we can know it's true. So Ramanuja laid out three reliable ways we can gain valid knowledge. First up, there's pratyaksha, or direct perception, what you see, hear, and touch. Second is anumana, or inference, using logic and reason to figure things out. And third is shabda, which is basically verbal testimony from a reliable source, especially the sacred texts. And inference is something we do all the time without even thinking about it. The classic example in Indian philosophy is this. You see smoke coming from a mountain way off in the distance. Now, you can't see the fire directly, but you remember a rule you've seen a million times: where there's smoke, there's fire. So you logically conclude there's gotta be a fire on that mountain. That process of reasoning is a totally valid way of knowing things. So, using these tools of knowledge, Ramanuja concludes that this one, qualified reality, is composed of three fundamental and eternal entities, or tattvas. I know this chart mapping out all of reality might look a little complicated at first glance, but don't worry, it all boils down to three basic categories that make up everything that exists. First, there's Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. Think of this as the ultimate, independent, controlling consciousness. Second, there's Chit. That's all the individual conscious souls. That's you and me. And third, there's Achit. That's all the unconscious stuff, the matter that makes up the physical universe. And this brings us right back to that body-soul analogy. The individual souls, the Chit, and the material world, the Achit. They're like the body. They're totally dependent on and controlled by Ishvara, who is the soul of it all. They're real, they're distinct, but they don't exist on their own. They exist for the sake of that supreme soul. Okay, so why does all of this deep philosophy matter? I mean, what's the point of this detailed map of reality? Well, it's because understanding our place in the universe is the first step on the path to the ultimate goal of life. And in this tradition, that goal is moksha, liberation, freedom from ignorance, freedom from suffering, and freedom from that endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. So how do we get there? If we are all eternally distinct parts of God's body, what's the path? For Ramanuja, the answer is crystal clear. The main path to liberation is bhakti, pure, loving devotion to the Supreme Lord. And what's liberation actually like? This is a really crucial point. In Viśiṣṭādvaita, your soul doesn't just dissolve into some big cosmic soup and lose its identity. No way. The liberated soul keeps its individuality. It gets to experience a state of infinite bliss and knowledge, a quality of consciousness that's just like the Supreme Being itself. And this leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. If Ramanuja is right, if every atom, every planet, and every single one of us is an integral part of a single divine being, what does that change about how we see ourselves, each other, and our place in this universe?